All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks to everybody for making time on in the middle of the work week for being here. This is a presentation about the North Fork River restoration in Norfolk, Nebraska, and the really beautiful work that they have done. I was so impressed when I saw it. That's why I reached out to Nathan about it to give this talk. So my name is Molly Moorhead. I'm an AmeriCorps member serving with Conservation Nebraska's Common Ground program. Conservation Nebraska's mission is to protect our state's natural legacy by educating the public, supporting communities, and increasing civic engagement, which we accomplish through locally led education efforts and community engagement projects to address local conservation concerns. Before today's speakers, there are a few housekeeping things to go over. Your cameras will remain off and you will be muted throughout the presentation. Please type any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll answer those at some point during or after the presentation. This presentation will be recorded and will be uploaded to Conservation Nebraska's YouTube page within the next couple of weeks. So if you miss any part of the presentation or would like to revisit it or share it with your friends, you'll be able to find it there. So following the presentation, we'll have a very brief survey that should only take less than a minute. This survey helps support programming like this one, so we appreciate you taking the time to fill it out. If anyone in attendance is interested in speaking with a Conservation Nebraska member regarding conservation issues in Nebraska, or to find out more about what we do, I'll put our email in the chat. So today we welcome Nathan Powell. Nathan Powell serves as the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, bringing more than 22 years of leadership experience in public parks and natural resource management. His career includes serving as a camp director, an Eastern Region Manager with Montana State Parks, and Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Mitchell, South Dakota. Nathan holds a Bachelor of Science in Parks and Recreation Management from Northern Arizona University and a Master of Science in Parks and Recreation Administration from California State University, Sacramento. He is a certified Parks and Recreation executive. Throughout his career, Nathan has focused on projects that strengthen communities while enhancing natural systems, including river and lake restoration, trail connectivity, and outdoor recreation development. In Norfolk, he helped oversee the implementation of a collaborative river restoration project that replaced an aging spillway with engineered whitewater features. This is what we're going to be talking about. The effort restored natural flow and improved habitat, water quality, fish passage, and public access. He remains committed to advancing parks and recreation as a catalyst for environmental stewardship, healthy communities, and sustainable growth across Nebraska. So that's Nathan's bio. We also have PJ Evans here, who is the Assistant Director of Norfolk Parks and Rec, to help answer any questions that come up later. So with that said, I'm going to let Nathan take it away and you can share your screen.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here and to actually share with everyone about our project that we have been working on for many years. And if you can see that screen, I want to make sure that everything is good there.
Looks
We'll go
good.
ahead. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is the Norfolk Whitewater Park, the in-stream improvements that we did at Johnson Park, and it also included some road improvements. So we'll go through the history. We'll start talking about who was involved in this project, and as you can see, JEO Consulting Group is our design group, who has won an award that's we're being presented for this engineering project on Thursday this week. So we're excited to get that statewide award. Big Muddy was also involved in the landscape design, and Riverwise Engineering designed the whitewater features that we have in the river. So we'll be looking at the history of the area. We'll be looking at our previous site conditions and our project background, our master plan process, the design process. We'll go through the construction of the project. We'll look at how it was funded. Very complicated funding project for a $17 million project. And then we'll look at the results from all of the efforts that we had over the years, which span back to 1974. So, to start us off, we want to look at, what's the history of Johnson Park and the Whitewater Park. It really started out as a mill in 1870 is when what started this area. We had a sawmill, a general store, a post office was also there. In the early 1900s, um, the mill dam was used as a swimming hole. So recreation has been going on here for well over 100 years. Johnson Park was a popular location for picnics and community gatherings. The picture that you see here is from 1937, after they had done some development back in the 30s. Johnson Park is located downtown Norfolk. It is right in the heart of our community. It is connected to the downtown as well, as you can see on the map here. It's right. The river goes right through our community. This is a picture of our community back in the early at the late 1800s, and you can see in the far right there's a oxbow area on the far right of that photo, and that is Johnson Park, and that is the area that we'll be talking about today. And the next slide actually shows you what that looks like. There's a little river dam for the grain mill. They have the diversion mill as well, where they had a little shop, post office, and then the oxbow developed into Johnson Park over time. These are some pictures of the dam there at Johnson Park. These are some of the original photos, and you'll see how that changed over time. We have a few more. These are postcards from the early 1900s. As you can see the dam structure that is there where the spillway was, and you can see during high flow how much water comes through that area. And in 1937 is when we developed the Whitewater Park, or I mean, not the Whitewater Park, but Johnson Park, and did the improvements there as a community park. It was a lot of gardens, sidewalks, trails, and different things. The flagpole, as you see there, is still there after 100 years. After the development of the park, though, these are some more postcards of Johnson Park from the 1930s. Here's also some more photos and images of those areas. We do have some rock retaining walls that we have kept and that are still there. In the 40s, after the development of the park, we did see flooding in 1944 and again in 1962, where water spread a mile and a half wide. In 1962, we have flooded 90 city blocks. So from that, we started working on of the flood control, and this occurred in 1960s. We had a flood channel, as you can see, installed in the 1960s. There was a north flood gate control to allow water to still flow through town, and a control gate on the south end as well to keep water from backing into the community. So we do maintain the water flow through town, and when it gets above flood stage, we divert that water. And that's what made this possible for the Whitewater Park, is because we do control the water flow going through town. That really helps us control the recreation aspects of the Whitewater Park. So we can look at some previous site conditions. These are right before construction. So over the years, this is what has developed. The river did end there right at First Street. The river continued, but that's where the Whitewater, or not the river rafting or river trail ended. It was at First Street, and people would get off there, and then they could float down in an inner tube, but that's what there would stop. There was no whitewater features at the time before construction. Again, another look at First Street, you can see that there was a spillway there right after First Street. Most of the inner tubing ended right at First Street. And here's another view from the south end, looking at that spillway. of the river. And what you're looking at there is Johnson Park. There was some trail development that had occurred prior to this. Most of that stayed. Um, the the trail on the straight section there, I guess you can call it, was actually removed because we removed that dam structure from Johnson Park to allow more flat surface going into the river, as you will see later on. But most of the other trails did stay as part of this project. If you look on the left, you can see the original spillway prior to the improvements that we did in for the diversion for the flood control. And we did add the spillway on the right during that 1960s project. But you can see from the original photos that we looked earlier, that dam structure is still there in these photos prior to our construction. Some more pictures. We did have the North Fork Landing, as was called. That's where people did do some tubing in the river for about a mile and a half before they hit the first street, and that's where they would get out, is right there at First Street, prior to that danger sign at First Street. And so tubing has been going on for since the 90s. They started doing some late 90s, early 2000s, doing some tubing in the river for about a mile and a half prior to that spillway. And so the project, if you would open up another mile and a half of river by removing the spillway and putting in 7 drop structures, you allow recreation use for another mile and a half into the current river. So where the star is, that is where people would get out of the river and they would float for about a mile and a half. But we're adding another mile and a half, so 2.5 to 3 miles of river access for floating in the river, which was a real big addition for the recreation experience that we had along the North Fork. So project background and kind of the master plan process. We really looked at what is this project for, and ultimately it was to reconnect people to the river. We wanted to reconnect the river to the park as well, because there was a separation when they did some work in the 1960s to divert water and to stop some of the flooding. They ultimately cut off Johnson Park to the river. And so we really wanted to open that up and connect that river back to the park as a part of the experience. Mechanically, it's removing the spillway under the First Street again, and that's what we wanted to do. And that's part of the project of what was done, and to connect the Whitewater Park with downtown, since downtown is right nearby. So we go back to 1974. It's when the master plan started for the Johnson Park project. In the early 90s, we had riverfront development concept revived. We had some visionaries that visited the river walk in San Antonio. And so bringing that concept and idea back to our community, that's when the visionaries started talking in the early 1990s. In 2008, renewed interest came for the Riverwalk through public forums. There was a development group that was formed, and they raised $86,000 to hire a design firm to help us, and that was HDR Engineering, who helped start the master planning for the project. In 2009, more interviews occurred, and we had public tours help to visualize future development. In 2011, the National Park Service granted an award for planning river recreation. And so that introduced the concept of river as a recreation trail. So again, we were able to add another mile and a half onto the river and to have a full experience. And it's mainly an all-day experience now. In 2015, there was a $500,000 grant awarded for the Johnson Park River Trail. and they also closed Nebraska Avenue and added landscaping. And so we were able to do some new trail work in there as well. In 2018, the overlay district established for consistent riverfront design and Lower Elkhorn Natural Resource District, they put over $1 million towards the river restoration. And then in 2019, design contract approved for Norfolk River Restoration Project. Whitewater features were explored at that time, and Johnson Park Amphitheater and festival space was also concepted and designed. The First Street Bridge replacement with a trail underpass was also part of that design work. And then in 2022, the project was planned and designed, and we started construction in 2023. So that's kind of the history of our master planning process. A lot of the in-river modifications, including removing the old mill dam, which that was the original dam, and also the spillway that was added in the 1960s. We did construction of 7 passable whitewater structures, 18 inches drop in each of those structures. Halfway through the design, we determined that we could add a surfing wave. And so we combined structures 1 and 2 into a single structure of 36-inch drop. So 18 inches and 36 inches doesn't sound like much, but when you see the photos later on, you'll be able to see just how much water movement is going through those structures and what that means for the kayaker. And once you've gone through our whitewater park and you have that water going over your kayak, you start to realize just how much water is going through there. So that flow is 165 CPS to 240. And that 240, that's when the floodgates start diverting water around the community. So we are able to navigate under a wide range of flow. We can turn it off, or we can go up to flood stage before we actually divert the water. So there's a lot of variation depending on how much rain we've had. It's a low year this year for our water, but the flow is still doing pretty well at this time. We've also did fish ladders as well. So as you can see, the pictures on the right, that's an 18-inch drop, and you can see for the kayaker, it's still a great experience. The inner tuber as well, and so this is great for canoeing, kayaking, tubing, shoreline viewing. We also do safe patches for aquatic life, which we'll talk about as well. And we will go through that here shortly. Park features that were part of this project. We did an updated playground. We did a modern playground and also a nature playground as well. So we had 2 separate types of playgrounds, the traditional playground and also a non-traditional playground, which is nature play. We did some new picnic shelters, an amphitheater structure for festival space. We installed a sports court that is also a refrigerated ice rink in the wintertime. So we do have year-round recreation happening in Johnson Park, which in the past we did not have. We also did trail lighting throughout, which is new to our community, is doing trail lighting to allow safe access for trail access in the evenings for people that are also not only just out recreating, but maybe getting to and from work. We also did a water feature with a fountain as well. We did some trail connections. We have 2 pedestrian bridge, which is what we'll show you here shortly. We have all-season restrooms. We've done 2 restrooms in there within the park for different spaces. One for the winter and the playground space, and also one for the whitewater park as well. We also improved our parking lot access, and we have more parking spots and kind of a little bit off-street parking instead of on-street parking for safety. And then river access to and from the whitewater park. And then I also talked about the trail lighting as well. In our implementation plan in 2019 and 20, including phasing of individual improvements, we did the funding strategies, permitting for in-river improvements, conceptual design, and coordination with local and private stakeholders. We didn't necessarily have all the funding to complete the project at the time. That was going to be ongoing as we work through the project and determine what amenities we would have and what amenities we wanted to hold off on. So the Johnson Park implementation plan would be the First Street Bridge and roundabout and river. That was phase one, start that bridge project. Phase two was the parking lot and the restroom. So timing was different based off of designing and also funding as well. And as funding came in, the phases would start up. Phase three, the Johnson Park and trail projects, and then phase four, all of our additional park features. By separating phase three and phase four, we saved over $1.5 million rather than having one contractor work on the project. Some of the city staff would work on some of those additional park features and do the work in-house to actually save money on the project. The First Street Bridge and roundabout included culvert removal and replacement with the bridge, in-river improvements as well, which you'll see shortly. First Street and Brosh intersection improvements. We also did some road improvements along Brosh Avenue prior to this project. And then the restroom and parking lot construction improvements on Oak in Nebraska. And then during that time, we also started some of the utility improvements. And then the Johnson Park is overall grading, the major trail connection, the amphitheater, and water features, picnic shelters, playgrounds was all part of that. This is kind of a timeline. In 2019, we did some design and permitting. We had some constructions awarded in 2022. More park design where it was occurring, even though we started some of the phase one improvements would be the road improvements as well. It already started. The parking lot and restroom construction had started. And then we kind of eased into phase two in 23 and in phase three in 23 and 24. And then final landscaping occurred in 2024. We were able to open up the river in late 23 while we worked on our park improvements. So people were floating down the river before the park was done. So we were excited to open that up to have an extra season of people enjoying that river. And we'll be able to look at those numbers here shortly. These were some of the design elements that came out of the design phase, the concepting of the project. As you can see, there's a beach area. We have trails throughout. We did a lot of tree planting. We planted over 100 trees in Johnson Park as part of the improvements that we made within the park. As you can see, in this picture, we do have two pedestrian bridges. We have one on this side, and we actually moved an old railroad bridge for the second one, and we'll show you that here shortly. This is another view from looking south from the north end of the park. We have the off-street parking. We have new playground improvements. We have the fountain. Again, trails throughout. The trails all lead kind of to a center point in Johnson Park, and they head out east of Johnson Park. They're heading to the north, to the west, into the community, to the northeast as well, and then trails heading to the downtown area as well. So it's a central hub for our community. Most trails lead here, and then you move on to the other destinations that you're heading. Just another picture of concepting out our fountain project and our ice rink. So we'll kind of get into the design structure of the surf feature. We did combine the structure 1 and 2 to create a surf feature because you needed that drop to actually have surfing. It is a live surfing wave. You can surf it all year long. We do have people surfing and kayaking in the winter months if it's not iced over. And so we've had some pretty warm winters. So this last couple of years it's been open. So we've been able to see people actually using it in the wintertime. As well as the new park. And we had seven drop structures total, including the surf feature. And as you can see, those were all designed and built all the way down through Norfolk Ave. It's about 3/4 of a mile of drop features as of the overall 2.6 miles of the river. So you get about, they're all within 3/4 of a mile. These are different put in and take out locations for the river. We have the first street put in, which we are still working on improvements. We do want to move that across the road. We have some land up there that we are leasing and hopefully would like to acquire at some point down the road. We have maybe a spot in our put in for about 10 cars. We're seeing 40 cars parked up there. So we're expanding that space. We're going from 1/4 of an acre to 6 acres of land available to us. Winter Park is another put in if you want a shorter float through the river. If you just want to go down the features, Winter Park's a great put in for that. Johnson Park would be the first takeout after the whitewater features. And then if you want to do the full float, you would get out at East Bluff Park. That has been recently designated as a park since we've opened up the whitewater park. We did have to expand some parking there. We did own the land there, but we had to create additional parking because we're seeing so many people use the river. So we also are able to monitor the flow. We have different markings throughout the river to determine where the flow range is, and we also can control it with the gates. And we can shut it off there at the gates and let it go flow around the flood control, or we can open it up fully like we have it right now. It's fully open to keep the whitewater park open. And currently there is no water diverting around at this point because of the dry winter that we've had. Wetlands were part of our design. We are losing some wetland. We had to do some wetland mitigation, and we were able to do that, determine where our wetlands were, and then we were able to install some more wetlands on the north end and do some modifications there. This is where we did some wetland improvements to the north of the Whitewater Park. You will float through this. If you go into the first street put in, you will float through the wetlands that you see, and it's part of the experience. It's very, very green. You don't even know you're in a city. It's a lot of trees in there, a lot of tall grasses. It's a great experience. This is a typical drop structure with the fish passage on the left side of the structure where the fish can swim upstream, and it really has helped out that experience for the fish and the wildlife that we have in the river. The fish habitat, it's designed for several fish passage and fish friendly structures. We worked with DNR staff to make that happen. Studies have shown that that new species of fish upstream of the river of Manchester Whitewater Park. So we noticed that the Whitewater Park does improve the habitat for fish, and we expect it to introduce new species into the river because of the fish passages that were installed as part of this project. The first street bridge replacement and roundabout, we did have to redo the road and also create a roundabout to slow traffic down for all the new pedestrian traffic that we would have here. Most of the trails go underneath the river, but the connection to downtown as well, there's a lot more foot traffic that you have. So the roundabout has really helped slow down and have access to the first street. Otherwise, it would be hard for the first Brosh Avenue to actually make their way north or south because of traffic. And again, another view of the roundabout, just safety for fire and police. and for pedestrians. And the traffic study did say a single lane roundabout would suffice for the area. Brosh Avenue, prior to this project, we did some improvements along Brosh Avenue, improving the landscape along the road, adding trees and shrubs and landscaped areas and grass areas as well. So we've created some green space along the road, and it was a lot of road beautification that occurred as part of that project. The old mill building is still there, and also the old gates are still standing as you see there. This is an old photo. Both the building and the structure is still in place. We haven't really developed a formal plan for the old mill building at this point. We've talked about it being a welcome center, maybe a little shop, something of that nature. So we're looking for options and partnerships on how we can improve that facility, but it is still there. The spillway is completely gone. This is a picture of the old First Street culvert that was there, and that bridge is completely gone. So we'll have new photos here shortly. We did add pedestrian bridge design to have some lighting along the bridge as well. The design work there, you'll see that bridge here shortly. And it does span 122 feet across the river. We also have the old railroad bridge, which was just north of our structure one, and we were able to. We had someone in the local community donate the funds to actually move that bridge and bring that and redevelop it as a pedestrian bridge as part of the project. As you can see here, the red line shows where the old railroad bridge is, and the green line shows you where the new railroad bridge is located, or where they moved the railroad bridge. And then the gray line across, you can barely see it there. That is another pedestrian bridge as well. That's the one that spans 120 feet. So the adjacent stream work that we had on First Street included structure 3 and structure 4. It's flowing pretty fast through there, right underneath the road area. We had so much space, but it actually moves the water a little faster through there. So it's great if you're floating through or kayaking. You do move a little bit faster before you hit those structures. And Johnson Park improvements. Again, here's some more pictures of all the things that we did. Includes the water feature, ice rink and sports court, an amphitheater, new restroom and parking. We got the new trails, the new picnic shelters, food truck area as well. That was added as well. A new playground and the nature playground. This is a look of all the improvements that we did to the trails within Johnson Park. And this is an overview while construction was going on. And you can see where all the drop structures were going as well. So construction, this is the groundbreaking day. That's where we started. You can see the rock that was already delivered, and we had already started the First Street project. Again, as we said, that was one of the first things that did start when we did the groundbreaking. This is when we were starting construction within Johnson Park. And the First Street Bridge, this is the construction of that First Street Bridge, and the in-stream improvements along the river there as well were well underway when that started. Construction was $8.5 million, and duration of the First Street improvements and the Whitewater Park went from 2022 to 2024. Some more pictures of that construction and tearing down the old spillway and the old dam structure. And then more pictures of the actual improvements. This is the pedestrian bridge in the center that was being laid across the river. It's a 120-foot span. And then the other two pictures are of First Street as you're looking as they're building the bridge. We had 15,000 tons of quartzite rock that was hauled in from Spencer Quarries in Spencer, South Dakota. And this is rock for the drop structures. And you can see they had staging areas for that rock, which had to occur before we could do the park improvements. And we kind of timed everything as things were coming out of the park, where we did the staging areas for the rocks, and we started making our improvements within the park after that. And you can see they started laying rocks, some of them very large, and rocks that were actually hauled in and set with a crane. And you can see them how they're setting rocks in the river. And here's some more pictures of that rock work that was occurring. That would be drop structure 4 that you're looking at there, with the concrete that was poured for the actual water flow going through the river. This would be, looks like drop structure 6, I believe, and we'll have some pictures of that with water flow here shortly. You can see the amount of work that went into that, setting each and every boulder and putting in the concrete work as well. Again, more pictures of that work. This is structure 7 on the right, and on the left would be structure number 3 or number 2. These boulders were, some of the boulders were 32 tons. They hauled them in on a truck and pulled them off on a crane, and they set about a dozen of those boulders within the river. You see tops of them sticking out. Those are the big boulders that they set in the river. And this is when this is high water levels of spring of 2024. This is one of the highest water levels that we've seen in the river. This is where you start closing the gates and keeping that water down to make sure it doesn't overtake the park at all. More pictures of First Street improvement and getting close to ending of construction. We had to do some storm drain installation as well along that project. The new parking lot and restroom for the Johnson Park went in. That construction cost was $840,000, and the duration of that project was 2022 to 2023. More pictures of that restroom. We did 4 bid packages for Johnson Park. This allowed us to actually save $1.5 million on the project by doing a lot of the legwork with city staff. The first bid package being the ice rink and water feature. The second one, upper trails and parking lot. The upper parking lot. The bid package 3 is the picnic shelters and amphitheater. And 4, park and trail lighting was the 4th bid package. And we did save money by doing it that way. Generally, you would do them all bid all together, but we were able to save money on the project to do more features for our project. This is the construction within the park. This would be the sport court and ice rink being installed. Another picture of that. Installing all the coolant lines inside the court so we can refrigerate the ice rink and have guaranteed ice all winter. We've been able to open that up at Thanksgiving, and we seem to be closing it down about the first week of March. New playground installation, city staff installed that ourselves, so that way also to save some money on the project. This is the new fountain and water feature that was installed. Our new shelters and picnic shelters that we installed in Johnson Park. This would be the amphitheater that was installed. There was during construction, we would find a lot of different things. This was an old, I think a bear den that was underground, and it was a hollowed structure that we had to pull out. They used to have some animals in the park back in the day. And you can see the big hole in the ground that we found as part of that project. This is another aerial view as project was well underway. You can see the playground was installed, the water feature, the ice rink was installed. All the rock has been put in the river by this point. We're getting ready to actually finish up construction down below and install some more trail and also the nature playground. So there's a big team of contractors, suppliers involved in the project, and consultants and engineering. Funding here, First Street Bridge was 4.39 million. The roundabout 1.3 million. In-stream improvements 4.3. Johnson Park 6.2, and the restroom parking lot just under $1 million, with a total project cost of 17 million. We had $6.4 million in grants and partnerships, $2 million in city in donations, and then the remaining city funds through enterprise funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, Keno dollars, and highway allocation funds. So the results, we have, prior to 2022, we had 800 river users per year. In 2025 is estimated we had 9,000 visitors, kayak, surfed, or tube in the Whitewater Park. And that is cell phones. So it could be, that's actually cell phones in the river. So anyone that didn't have a cell phone wasn't counted. So these are conservative numbers. And another 65,000 people visited Johnson Park. So huge improvement. We also have positive feedback on social media. And then these are some before and after photos of the same area. You can see Johnson Park on the left, and then the new Johnson Park on the right. More before and after photos of the spillway and the First Street improvements. And this is where the railroad bridge was moved. You can see where its old location, and the bottom right is it's at its new location, part of the trail system. And when the feature that you see there is our feature 1, which is our surf feature. That's also the surf feature as well. Some more before and after. The new pedestrian bridge, our new shelters, amphitheaters, off-street and on-street parking, ice rink, water features, our nature playground there to the right, which is a great new addition. We also have lighting at night. So we have color lighting on the features at night. So we can change those colors throughout the season, and also the trail lighting throughout. We've added artwork along with a partnership with Nucor, in the high school. Our local schools build those art features for the art walk within Johnson Park. More finished photos. As you can see, those drop structures create a great experience for the kayaker, and that 18 inches is a lot when you're on a kayak. Again, that's another view of structure number 6. Some more pictures of it finished, and getting ready here to wrap up the presentation. And so again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you so much, Nathan. That was awesome. I'm gonna just put the poll for people to fill out as as questions start to roll in. So yeah, feel free to ask questions, everyone, and fill out this quick little survey for us. While you were talking, I was thinking about how, like, you were talking about flood control and the diversion, but also, like, when I was there visiting, I just can't help but thinking about, like, you have a lot of space that's sloped around the river. So, like, kind of a worst case scenario flood, it seems like there's a lot built in there as well, because, like, the river could flood its banks in that park, and the only thing it's flooding is like a trail and some lawn versus, like, buildings and homes and stuff. Like, I was wondering if you could speak to that at all. If am I right about that?
Yep, yep. We've had some pretty good rain last year where the waters once you shut the gates, we only have to deal with the in town water, which there's been plenty of we haven't had any issues once you close the gates down. Most everything diverts. So it would we haven't even gotten to our beach level yet. So we haven't seen any issues with flooding. Even the if the if we didn't have the flood control, it would have flooded during those times. But so we haven't really seen any real issues with flooding since they did the flood control in the 60s within the community. Um, and you are correct. If we were to have a major flooding event, there's still lots of room before it starts to flood any buildings nearby.
That just seemed so smart to me. Like, just so many cities are built right up against the water. We've had a lot of issues with that. I think a lot of cities around the world are really struggling with how do we deal with that? And that's partially why I loved this project. It was just like, oh, and it's so beautiful. Like if you haven't been there, to anybody, like I highly suggest going. I mean, it's just like, whoa, there's a spot I can wash my feet. There's everything I need. Basically, it's this beautiful space.
It is it yeah, it's definitely, and it's changed the experience on the river. You don't even in some areas, if you floated the whole river, it's hard to even notice that you're even in town. It's just but you're right in the center of it.
Are there rentals for equipment, kayaks and tubes
Yep, there's a
there?
local outfit that does rent equipment and they'll drop you off and pick you up at the put in and take out as well.
Very cool. I
There's
don't see any questions yet. I'm curious, PJ, if you have anything you want to add.
Everything that has been added has been great for a recreation standpoint. So we do plan some programming. The ice rink that Nathan was talking about that was added, that had generated about $34,000 in revenue the first season we were open. It was a lot busier than we anticipated, or I anticipated for it to be. Um, we had approximately 9,000 um, season participants, what would be a good estimate. It is free entry, so people can just bring their own skates, or you can rent from us. So the ice rink has been a great addition just for recreation programming as well. We had a hockey program. We tried to do some river programming. We're kind of just getting our feet off the ground with that. Making sure it's appropriate with our insurance company, things like that. But like Nathan was talking about, the surf feature, that's a great opportunity to learn surfing. So if you want to go to an ocean and do try surfing, you can experience it here in the river beforehand. So it is a little different experience, but definitely you have to learn how to move the board and gain balance and things like that. The kayaking as well. We did offer some kayaking things. I want to do a haunted float. So, from a recreation standpoint, it's a great opportunity to bring some recreation and get people out of their house and enjoy the amenities that we have in our parks.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. I'm curious if either of you have seen or heard about more like other wildlife besides fish showing up more, like any kind of water birds or anything like that.
Yep, if you're float down the river, you'll have some birds follow you all the way down, and that's a fun experience. Great to see the wildlife having that water flow. It's right downtown, so I don't know what other wildlife might be on the north end or the southern end, where you kind of get a little bit out of the community. But yeah, the bird and fish life, I think, have made a tremendous improvement. since doing this. And before, the water would sit there and stagnate, and it wouldn't be very, very clean, and a lot of trash floating around. And we've been able to clean all that up, and it just makes the experience better.
Does the whitewater features help with the water staying clean?
Yeah, just that constant water movement
Yeah.
and aeration in the water, which we didn't have before.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, that's so great. Do you have anything else you want to add? I know that presentation was really thorough, but is there anything else since we have a couple minutes?
Yeah, well, I think people need to, always know that it's free. It's open to the public, and it's a great experience for people to come and enjoy. There's a lot of donors and grants and partners that went into this project. We're very grateful for all of that. But the gift to the back to the public is a free experience. This is a place where you can come and enjoy a park, enjoy a river, bring your own inner tube and float down. We do encourage everyone to wear their life vests. Um, there are requirements. The state boating laws are required when you are floating, so the same rules apply there on the river. So we do encourage people to come enjoy it safely, and we're glad that we can keep this going and keep it a great place for people to come. So
That's great. So if we don't have any questions, that can conclude our webinar. Thank you all for filling out this survey. We really appreciate it. If you want to share this with someone who wasn't able to attend live, or if you want to watch it again, so this webinar will be posted on our YouTube in the near future, along with all of our catalog of past webinars. Thank you so much for attending this webinar and supporting local conservation efforts. Most importantly, thank you, Nathan and PJ, for your presentation and all of your work on this project, sharing your time and talent, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
thank you
Thank
very much. Bye.
Bye.